Good afternoon. You saw earlier the confirmation, the court appearance of the 5 men accused of planning and murdering the rapper, a.k.a. Kiernan Forbes, and the celebrity chef, Tebello Tibz Motsoane, has been postponed. It will resume next week. The 5 men are expected to apply for bail. 2 others are being held by authorities in Eswatini. Bruce Hendricks is an attorney at Hendricks-Harmse Attorneys. Bruce, good afternoon to you, and thanks for your time. This is supposed to be what journalists... This is supposed to be what journalists always call a first court appearance, then there'll be a bail application. How much could we learn from the state's case from that bail application? Could it tell us quite a lot about what the prosecution knows?
Well, I think a lot's going to be heard from the state side and as to what's the merits of the state's case. If you think about it, the state will have to lay the basis as to why they say the accused can't be released out on bail. And therefore they will have to lay out what is the current evidence and the strength of the state's case in order for these accused, their bail application to be opposed successfully. I think what the defense are going to do in this matter, they would probably get a fair chance to hear what are the allegations against all the accused, what is the state alleging, how they are connected to the murder of a.k.a. Kiernan Forbes, and how the state intends prosecuting them further. What is important is that this will be a Schedule 6 bail application, meaning these accused will have to show exceptional circumstances for them to be released out on bail. And that is fairly quite a difficult challenge in the current circumstances. From where I'm sitting, I think the state will allege that there are flight risks, and that will be one of the main reasons they will oppose bail for these accused. And
it's Schedule 6 because it's premeditated murder. If you track someone from when they land at King Shaka Airport and then have shooters and spotters and a coordinator, it's obviously premeditated murder.
Yes, absolutely. So what the state will allege is that there was a meeting of minds, there were prior planning. Obviously, like I say, they will have to go into the merits, and one has to wonder where they get this information from. Was it from one of the accused? Is there an informant? Is there someone that could actually put some meat to the bone for the state's case?
Today, the state said it needed more time for investigations. Bruce, do we need to worry a bit about that? The state had made these arrests. I would have thought they would have been ready to go.
Absolutely. So what happens in a normal world is there is always further investigations to be done. And what the accused did today is they're quite right, or exercising their right, because they have a right to apply for bail immediately, whether there's further investigations outstanding. Normally what the police should have done is they should have investigated properly and then arrest, and not arrest and then investigate, because like the magistrate correctly pointed out, it seems that they will be doing things in piecemeal, bit by bit as they go along. And one would think that when you arrest someone, that you have sufficient evidence to actually put a prima facie case together to place them before the court, and also to ensure that they're not released out on bail if it comes from the state side.
I mean, the risk, of course, is if the state's still not ready next week, what then? I mean, can you imagine the uproar if the magistrates takes the state to task? They might have no choice but to release these men.
Yeah, so, look, the magistrate is impartial and objective, and the magistrate will have to make a decision whether there is indeed grounds to keep the accused in custody, and whether it is in the interest of justice to have them released out on bail. And if the state still has investigation to be done, then it could become quite problematic from the state or the complainant or the deceased family side, as it might lead to the accused being released out on bail.
There are 2 other people still in detention in Eswatini. Our government has asked for their extradition. There'll be now a process in Eswatini to do that. I presume the trial can't really start until they're back in the country.
Yeah, so extradition is quite a difficult procedure to follow. It's quite complex, and it can also take a long time to get them back into the country. Look, pre-extradition, the accused also has a right to apply for bail, and then the extradition hearing happens. It's a separate inquiry from the bail hearing, and it's only to determine whether they should be extradited back to South Africa to stand trial for this matter.
I was interested in this, Bruce, and I'm no expert on law in Eswatini and know even less about our law, but it struck me that in Thabo Beste's case, you may remember he went to Tanzania, he went there illegally, and Tanzania just took the decision to deport him and to basically put him in the hands of our police, which is what they did. Yeah. In this case, Eswatini police have said that these two men, they're South Africans as far as I know, also entered Eswatini illegally. Wouldn't it just be easier for everyone, well, maybe not for the two men, but wouldn't it be easier for South Africa and Eswatini if they were just deported rather than extradited?
Yes, absolutely. So, and that again, I'm also not familiar with the laws of Eswatini, but with a deportation, it can also be challenged, reviewed, and appealed in terms of our laws. So if there's a deportation application, you have the right to make representations to the Director General of Home Affairs. Should that be unsuccessful, you can write to the Minister of Home Affairs, actually, to declare you not to be deported. So, and then you can take it further into the court. So it can take a year or two. There's no precise time as to how long it will take. But definitely, Stephen, to deport them would be an easier option for the state.
It seems to me, I mean, it's quite strange that Eswatini would go the extradition route. I'm sure Eswatini wants to stay on good terms with South Africa. They'll be as interested in the interests of justice as anyone. They're probably quite irritated, quite aggrieved, to use a more legal term, that people left our country when accused of a crime and ran to Eswatini. Quite a lot could actually hang on this decision.
Yes, you see, Stephen, what's also concerning is at what stage did this persons flee or leave the country to Eswatini. That is one of the concerns. And I think, and I don't want to put the horse before the cart here, but that is probably what the state wants to investigate. What's their ties to the current accused before court? And from what you're saying quite correctly, the accused that's currently before court can also argue that it is an exceptional circumstance that there's still other outstanding suspects that should be traced and should be placed before the court before this matter can actually proceed to trial. As one of the circumstances for which they would rely on bail.
Bruce, you're an attorney, so technically I think the phrase that people sometimes use is you're an officer of the court. And so you have an interest, as I do as a journalist, in the rule of law. And it concerns me how long this could take. And the obvious sort of parallel is the Senzo Mio murder trial. Now, look, it took 5 years for the people to be arrested. We've seen the NPA make decisions that I think some people have sort of questioned in that. But the risk here is that this case could take as long as the Senzo Mio murder trial has taken. And to my mind, when that happens, it probably undermines the strength of the rule of law. It undermines how we see the criminal justice system.
Absolutely. They say justice delayed is justice denied. And you can think from the victims and the deceased family side that they would obviously want justice to happen as quickly and as speedily as possible. However, that is not always possible. There is a lot of delays in our criminal justice system. The wheels of justice actually turns very slow. And as you've seen in the Senzo Mio case, these cases can take up to years. And I think ultimately what the family would want is closure as to who's responsible for the death of their family members. And I think if the state is still sitting with outstanding investigation to be done, it becomes quite problematic as to how far is the investigation, at what stage it is. Because look, as a prosecutor, you would also not want to divulge or go too deep into what evidence you are sitting with at this stage. It's going to be a very interesting bail application. Like I say, the state will obviously go into the merits as to how these accused are linked, why they only arrested after such a long time. Because look, on the contrary, you can also argue the state has had almost a year or more than a year to investigate this matter. There's only arrest being made now. Why now? The accused, knowing that if they had to commit this murder, why didn't they also flee? Why didn't they evade justice? They're still in the country, so they should be granted bail. On the other side is the state can argue, but now that you do know that there is these charges against you and you face lengthy imprisonment because there is a minimum sentence applicable to these type of charges where accused face life or 15 years imprisonment for some of the charges, which is quite lengthy imprisonment. So if someone has to face that, the risk of fleeing or evading justice is quite great for you to just try and skip the country or evade justice at the end of the day.
Bruce Hendricks, good to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed. A lawyer at Hendricks-Harmse Attorneys. Really appreciate the time. More